Hi there, welcome back to Mudwalkers. If you're not a Patreon member, go ahead and check out the link in the description so you can support me financially. So we're comparing some knives today, and it's really all started with the Recon Tanto, and then I changed to the Hissatsu. I'll say why in a second. But I saw a review of this one by the Adventurer's Blade where he said that it didn't cut through bottles very well. Insert clip.
Obtuse edge angle grind, which makes it very sturdy and good at penetrating hard materials, but not so great at cutting light targets like these water bottles. But that's okay, because that's really not what it's for.
And I decided to check on that for myself because this was designed by a sword master in a Japanese art, so he knows how to make things that are cutty. So I figured if I put a good enough edge on this, it would work. So in case you're intimidated by convexing, check out the edges on these. I convexed this knife on a $12 800 grit sharpening stone. Look up some videos on how to convex. It's not super complicated, just a little time consuming. You can do this. If you can afford this knife, or this knife, you can afford to convex it. With a little bit of practice, you can do it. I actually practiced on an old hickory knife that I picked up for like $8 at a hardware store. That's how I learned to convex. So convex something that you don't mind ruining, and you probably won't even ruin it. And then do something you actually care about. So the theory went that if I convexed this and got it up really sharp, it would probably cut through bottles like a dream. And I've never actually cut bottles with this one, so I brought it out and a few others to see how they all do, and we'll finish with the Hissatsu because, you know, suspense. Let's look at the lineup. Okay, here's our lineup. Over here you can see we have the Condor Jungle Bowie 2. This is a stainless steel Bowie knife. It's really for, I think, light brush clearing, things like vines and small bushy branches and things like that. It's really not a heavy chopper, but I brought it out anyway because it's got this nice long curvature, which should make it a pretty good slasher. Here we have my Bark River Bravo 2. This is by far the most expensive knife down here. It's made of CPM 3V. Is this focusing? I hope so. But it's made of 3V. One of my all-around favorite knives. The ergonomics on it is just the best in my whole collection. Love this knife. And of course, if you followed my channel recently, you'll know this is the Cold Steel Recon Tanto. Probably my most sentimental knife that I own. It's made from cheap VG1 steel. This is 420 high carbon stainless steel, it says. Then we have the Cold Steel SRK, which is also made in CPM 3V, same as the Bravo 2. But the SRK is in a much better price point. I paid $300 for the Bravo 2 used. I paid $150 for this thing brand new. So if you're looking for a 3V survival knife, light duty chopper, go with the 3V SRK. Now, when I saw Avatar 2, I was inspired all over again by the whole rewilding aspect of it, and I wanted to pick up a knife that reminded me a bit more of the Navi than something like the Recon Tanto. So I picked up a CRKT Hissatsu. You'll notice this does not look like the pictures because I took the finish off of this gray portion of the blade. I'll explain why in a second. But the curvature, the fine tip, and this gorgeous handle. I'll insert some close-ups. But yeah, overall, it's a gorgeous knife. So I wanted to pick one up, but I watched a few YouTube reviews first. And one of the reviews in particular caught my attention, but not altogether the way that I expected, but we'll get into that. Okay, for the first cut, we're gonna try the Jungle Bowie 2, 420 high carbon stainless steel. I'm gonna try hitting it this way, so that the water sprays away from the camera. Alright, as you can see, not the most even, pretty cut, but it cut. I'm pretty pleased with it. You can even see a spot here. Can you see that? There are some spots where the plastic is really jagged, and that shows that the cut just wasn't very smooth. It's probably an edge alignment issue, but I mean, it cut. I guess that's a good sign. I guess the curvature did its thing. But this is really a woodworking edge. You can tell because it's got that broad, flat edge. That's really kind of a Scandivex edge meant for cutting into wood, not for cutting into soft targets. So that's probably partly what's going on. But let's check the other knife, the next knife. Okay, next one in the lineup is the Bark River Bravo 2 CPM 3V. This is a very thick, very heavy knife. I really don't like the idea of using it to fight, but I think it'll be a neat little experiment just to see how it cuts through a bottle. Ah, not as good. That's probably my fault. Let's try one more. Bark River Bravo 2, second cut. Try to stick it a little farther this time, so I actually get the whole blade in there. Much better. Much better. Drying off my knives, cause I want them to stay nice. Oh yes. This is interesting. I actually focus. I'm finding these streaks of glue on the knife. I'm wondering if that's what's causing the hang-ups. Anyone who's more experienced at bottle cutting than I am probably knows what the real issue is, so by all means, please let me know in the comments. Alright, well, one of the more interesting tests, to me at least, is the Cold Steel Recon Tanto Convex Edition. I'm not sure how this is going to do. It has a really gradual convex. I think it's the most gradual convex I've ever put on a knife myself, so we'll see how it does. Alright, Recon Tanto bottle cut. Ooh, that felt really good. Yeah. Complete cut. So, that's something. Alright, well the audio is going in and out. I know I'm having to switch microphone hardware to shoot the slow-mo because I only have so many cameras out here. But I thought you guys would like seeing the slow-mo, so I'm trying to catch that. But we'll see how it works out. The SRK was a lot harder to convex because of the hardness of this steel. It's a much better steel than on the Recon Tanto, so the convex is not as gradual. but it's got a nice shine to it, which I really like. But yeah, we're gonna have to see how it cuts. Oh, and if you'd like to learn how to convex a knife yourself, I've left some links in the description below links to a couple of YouTube channels that really helped me in terms of learning to convex a knife. Really great guys. I think you're gonna enjoy their content. If you like this video, you're gonna love their content. You like my my high-tech, you know, post out here? I spent a fortune on it. There'll be a link in the description to the nothing that I spent on it. All right, cold steel SRK CPM 3B. Bottle cut test. Oh. That was the best one so far. Look how clean that is, huh? Look how clean. Let me put the knife down. That is smooth. Look at that. That's almost a straight line. Gorgeous. Wow, I did not expect anything this clean today. It's amazing. All right. Now for the moment I have all been waiting for. The CRKT Hissatsu. I'm excited. Let's see how it does with a horizontal, you know, kind of going this direction. But then we're also going to cut a second bottle horizontal just to see if it will do it. I don't know if I have the skill for that cut, but we'll see if the knife can make up for my lack of experience. Try a different angle this time, maybe. Send the water that direction. Put the bottle front and center. Here we go. Diagonal cut. Move the glue. Diagonal cut. Here we go. I felt even smoother in the SRK, honestly. Oh yeah. Focus. Magic. Alright, so clearly that is a pretty straight cut. I think it looks even better than the SRK. But I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Get it on there nice and gingerly. Balance it on this super stable piece of wood here. Boy, oi, 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 oi. Alright, we are on. I'm going to cut this horizontally. Let's see what happens. There's water all over the second camera. Spoiler alert, the second camera is my phone. Alright, here we go. Trying for horizontal. I'm going to try to hit it at the wasp waist here. This kind of narrow bit in the middle, center, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know how good my aim is, so we'll find out. Here we go. It stayed so close that I thought it actually was still in one piece. Let me wipe the knife. And there's a plane. That's nice. Okay, well, if we can get this to focus. The cut is not quite as clean as the previous cuts from the SRK and the Hissatsu. My theory with this is that this is because the Hissatsu is coming at it from 90 degrees and it just doesn't bite as well that way. But like I said, I don't really cut bottles. This is my first time, except for like one other time I tried this the other day. So if you know what's going on, do let me know in the comments. Okay guys, well, I have officially run out of bottles for this video, which means it's just this one left. And I labored over what to do with the last one, if I wanted to do another diagonal cut, if I wanted to do another horizontal cut. But you know, one thing that no one doubts about this knife is its ability to pierce things. Look at that. Look at that tip. It's got a nice thick blade, but it's also got a very, very fine tip. So no one doubts its ability to pierce things. I actually think if I toss this in the air, I can probably catch it on the blade. Like so. So, I think I'm gonna try that and we'll see how it goes in the slow-mo. The ultimate test of my bottle cutting ability. Do I suck or do I not? Well, we're about to find out. All right, here we go. An attempt at piercing this thing. Here we go. Ah! Like it wasn't even there. Now we can go ahead and just cut it again. And of course it was the worst cut of the entire day. That's my ego getting to me. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, so my main camera overheated. So I'm using my extra special, you know, backup slow-mo camera here. It's a phone. To review the slow-mo footage while I wait for my main camera to return to normal temperature. Bloop, 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 bloop. I'm not ADHD at all. Anyway, so in case you're ever wondering what I'm like when I'm not recording videos about theology and naturism, this is exactly what I'm like. Okay, so here we are, and there's the backpack, which is, I don't know, about 12, 15 feet away. I guess about 4 meters, 5 meters. And I reviewed the slow-mo footage and I realized that one of the bottle caps from these bottles, when I had cut with the Bravo 2, actually went flying off the bottle. And I reviewed the slow-mo footage and I saw that the cap actually went that away at quite the rate of speed, by the way. And I was able to use that to track it down. I spent a few minutes on it, and let's see how many of my giant size 14 paces it is to get to this bottle cap, if I can find it again. All right, so it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, I see it, 5, 6, about 6 paces away. But we found it. Always clean up your litter. Yeah. Leave no trace. I would actually say leave a place better than you found it. It's not about just not leaving a trace. It's about, yeah, bettering the land while you're there. It's time for the most exciting part of the video. The cleanup. Okay, even I thought that was corny. I'm just gonna pick up now. Get in. Goodbye. But yeah, that's about it for this portion. Now let's go to the backyard. It's time for my favorite kind of recycling. Ugh. The throw it back in the woods kind. Yay! Oh, this knife is so big. Alright, with the cutting portion out of the way, now it's time for the sit down and talk portion. Right there. Overall, I feel like the knives did pretty well. The one I felt like performed the worst was the Bravo 2. But, you know, part of that is my own lack of aim with this knife. I just didn't get that first cut in the way that it was supposed to. Just didn't reach out far enough. The second worst was the Bowie. You would think that it would be a nice slasher, but when you look at the actual blade profile, it makes sense that it wouldn't cut bottles super well. It's got a really, really steep, what's the word, Scandivex. which makes it great for chopping. Keeps a nice robust edge while giving good, you know, decent penetration into wood when chopping. But it's just not going to be a very good cutter through, you know, softer targets like bottles, especially when they bounce around. So those are the big two. Then there was the Recon Tanto, which I felt like did, you know, better than the Bravo 2 or the Bowie, but still not the best one of the day. Ultimately, in terms of cutting, I feel like it was pretty much a draw between the SRK and the Hissatsu. Like I said, I was inspired to buy this knife in the first place, partly by a YouTube review of the knife by a YouTube channel called The Adventurer's Blade. He did a nice little review of this knife. My favorite kind of knife reviews are the reviews where people actually use the knives, instead of sitting on a desk and just showing it to you and talking about the steel and the specs and everything, and, you know, telling stories about one's experience with the knife, which is, you know, valid, but it's just not as punchy as using the knife. And I felt like the Adventurer's Blade really nailed that review. So he's part of the reason why I got this knife in the first place. But, so one thing that I will disagree with the Adventurer's Blade about is the primary function of this knife. He says that it was designed for military and law enforcement application, which is true, but then he says that it's primarily a thrusting weapon, not a cutting weapon. Well, if you look at the blade profile, that doesn't hold up. This is obviously a slashing tool, but it's also got a really fine tip that is decently aligned with the handle, but not totally. This kind of trailing point is really for cutting. If you want something that cuts and thrusts about 50-50, you're going to look at something like the Cold Steel SRK. Notice how straight it is. The tip is almost centered in line with the handle. This is going to be very straight when you want to go straight in and straight out. It's for thrusting.
This tip is nearly the center line of the handle, so good for stabbing and slashing.
If you try to thrust in line with the handle with this knife, you're going to get some penetration, but it's going to tend to roll upward. So it's not going to be a straight in kind of a thrusting tool. Now it will thrust, and I'm sure it would do great thrusting, but clearly the design of this weapon is more along the lines of cutting than thrusting. Now, it's true, the Adventurer's Blade had some difficulty cutting bottles with this knife. Not this specific one, but this type of knife, this CRKT Hissatsu, this model of knife. And he did say that the edge angle was very, very steep, which, you know, would explain the lack of cutting power. But, like I said before, convexing a knife does a lot for that sort of thing. It doesn't take very long, especially with a soft steel like this, and it improves the performance of the knife overall. And you can choose your own edge angle, which you can pick up through practice. This thing is still pretty sharp. It's not as sharp as I would like it, but it's decently sharp. But yeah, overall I really, really enjoy this. I think it's the best cutter out of all of these knives. But for some reason, the SRK cut at least as well as the Hissatsu, and maybe better. So in the end, if you're looking for a really, really good knife for a good price, you couldn't do worse than the Cold Steel SRK. Well, no, you couldn't do better. I'm getting my idioms mixed up. The SRK is a great option. So the CRKT Hissatsu is a phenomenal weapon. It's very well designed. It excels at slashing and is still very, very good with piercing. You don't want to get stabbed or cut with this, believe me. It's a very scary knife that I almost cut myself with. Anyway, a little bit of story for the Hissatsu. I've always loved the Avatar films. The first Avatar film is actually my favorite film of all time, to this day. When the second Avatar came out, I got so excited about the movie that I immediately went on Amazon and started looking for knives that I could buy that would, you know, be kind of in the not-these spirit. And there were a few different options, but the one I kept coming back to was the CRKT Hissatsu. because, I mean, like, pretty much everything about this knife reminds me in one way or another, at least faintly, of the Navi. So, one thing is the handle. The handle actually looks like some kind of hide. Obviously it's a rubber grip, but I mean it looks like a black rubber version of some kind of lumpy animal hide. And then the detail in the top and bottom looks like it would be custom knife brass etching, just really good stuff. And that curvature to the blade, granted the Navi put the edge on the other side, the concave portion of the blade, not the convex side of the blade, kind of like a giant karambit. But this is more on the cutting side, the slashing side, I should say. More like, you know, a human knife. And personally, I like slashing and those quick motions, not as much the digging motions of a karambit. But then again, I'm biased and ignorant, and I never owned a karambit. So maybe I should just buy one and try it. Maybe I would like it. But right now, this is what I know I like. You've probably noticed that the sun has moved. Just in closing, again, Hissatsu, great knife. It needs to be convexed to achieve its full potential. Now, that's what I would say about most of these knives, and most knives in general, actually. If you can't see the mosquitoes, there are many. I need to get inside. So, yeah, with that, I think the video is pretty much over, so I think you know what time it is. This video is brought to you by my generous supporters over on Patreon. Shout out to Nature Him, Todd, Jacob, Jay Sweets, Edward, John S., Joseph, Charlie, Lionheart, Liam, Jesse, Adam, Edward T., Nate, Jay Good, Cyan, John W., Clifton, Trev, Scott, None Here, Alan, Danny, Keaton, Marty, Hank, Joseph G., and Flavio. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters. You guys are making all this possible. You are keeping my channel up. You're making all this really work. You're keeping all this going. So thank you so much for what you're doing on Patreon. If you haven't already checked out my Patreon link, it's in the description below. Do check it out. We've got very affordable tiers. We do a monthly Zoom hangout, me and all of the $10 patrons. And it's my favorite part of Patreon, is getting together with my supporters every month and having a great big conversation and just in general hanging out. So with that, I'm going to end the video here. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Alright, just real quick before we go. If you do pick up a Hissatsu, focus. If you do pick up a Hissatsu, make sure you get a leather sheath for it, because the plastic sheath it comes with dulls the edge very quickly. So just bear that in mind. Man, here I was thinking I would get out of this video without cutting myself, but doggone it. I have taken a grievous wound. Name that reference.